and welcome to the Oxbridge Formula. Here at the Oxbridge Formula, we provide online courses and summer and half-term courses to help prepare you for Oxford. You can also visit our website, there's a link in the description, which gives you information about how we can help you with admissions tests and interview prep. And also you can check out our website to look at some blogs that have been written by students about student life at Oxford. And yeah, it just gives you a better insight into what life is like at these incredible universities. So one of the big subjects that the Oxbridge Formula concentrates on is chemistry. So I thought it'd be really cool to talk to Tang today about her experience of chemistry at Oxford. So hi Tang, it's really nice to have you here today. Just tell me about yourself first of all.
So I'm Tang. I'm a second year chemistry student at Merton. And so far, yeah, I've been having a good time with it on the whole.
That's good, that's promising, because I know some people, obviously, chemistry is quite an intense subject, so yeah, it's good to know that you've enjoyed it so far. So can we have just a little bit of background about you, like what sort of school did you go to, what was your background that way?
So I went to a state grammar, very local to where I live, so nothing kind of special or no big decision about where to go other than just what worked out in the end. And then GCSEs kind of just your general mix really, sciences, English, maths. We had to do a language, but I don't think it really affected anything in the end.
Yeah.
And then on to A-levels, I ended up picking maths, chemistry, biology and music actually, so that's my kind of school background.
That's really nice, it's really cool.
It was good fun, it was good fun.
It's really nice that you did music, I mean it's quite a nice subject to sort of balance out all the science, so that's really nice.
Yeah, I think something that the music taught me as an A-level was how to sort of research and read up on topics myself, because there's a lot more independent learning on that side than it was, say, for maths and the sciences. Like at A-level, those were a lot more structured. So being able to read things up and knowing how to Google search things was actually very useful on coming to uni.
That's a really good tip, because I suppose you're right, like there is a set syllabus for science subjects, and like you just have to really learn what's on the syllabus to get good grades. Whereas with like music, I suppose, and I did history AS, you have to do a lot of independent study, and I think it's good practice for when you come to Oxford. So yeah, that's like quite a good tip. So do you mind me asking how well you did in your A-levels? You don't have to tell me exact grades if you don't want to.
I got an A star in maths, chemistry, biology and an A in music.
Wow, that's incredible, well done. What's the entrance requirements for chemistry at Oxford?
When I applied, it was 2 A stars and an A, so you would just have to check up if it has changed, but unlikely.
Yeah, perfect, that's well done, that's incredible. So let's talk a little bit about your journey to Oxford. So obviously you came from a state grammar, so does that mean that the school gave you quite a lot of help with applying to Oxford? Was Oxford always a place you wanted to go? Was it always like a clear path for you?
I think I didn't know. I guess I ideally wanted Oxbridge, but at the time I didn't know whether Oxford or Cambridge, like whether I had a preference for either. In terms of school preparation, I mean, perhaps the environment might have been better than other schools, because there was quite a lot of emphasis on going to university, which I know in like some of my peers didn't particularly like, because they wanted to say do more vocational courses. And so it didn't bode as well that the school was kind of focusing a lot more on like UCAS applications and getting all that prepared. I think there was one Oxbridge talk, but as you can tell, I remember not that much of it. Where maybe they got one of the alumni to come back and talk to us. But yeah, I don't remember too much about it. I think they tried where they could. I think our school is paired with Hertford College, perhaps.
Okay.
So I remember one lady coming in to talk about it. And I guess that is of some use, thinking, oh, we have some sort of link. But I didn't mention it in any of my applications, and I didn't really think about it at all either. I don't know, like just, I guess perhaps the environment was good, but in terms of specifically Oxbridge, I don't think there was that much guidance for them.
So what made you want to apply to Oxbridge?
So I guess it's kind of aspirations, the dreaming spires, is that what they call
Yeah.
it? And I think going somewhere where you're full of people who have big ideas, or this is what I went in thinking about, and wanting to do as well as they can. Have people with aspirations, big goals. I'm not saying that you can't get to other places, but when you're kind of young and impressionable, that's just the idea you get, I think. Um, I would say that's kind of my main. It's just if you can aim for the best, why not? Just give it a go. You never know what's going to come out of it, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so important that like you have to remember that it's only one of your 5 choices for university. So if there's even like the slightest chance that you could get in, if your grades are decent, like you have just as good of a chance as anybody. So just apply. Yeah. So
I think
yeah.
so. And also, one of the best things is when you like. Hopefully, they still continue with the interview process. It is stressful, but then you get a few days off from school for free, staying in like an Oxford college. I was like, yeah, I'll take that. If nothing else.
Yeah, even if you don't get in, it's like a holiday in Oxford for free, so it's ideal.
Exactly. I was like, yep.
So we'll definitely come on to talk about the interview process after. But I just want to ask, like, why chemistry? What made you pick that?
So for me, it was, I like to know more about why the world is the way it is, for want of a better way of saying that. And just, yeah, being curious, wanting to know more about things. And then, because originally I was thinking of doing medicine or music, like even until, say, year 12. Like,
Wow.
I still wasn't sure. And to be fair, one of the big things is UNIQ summer schools. I applied, and this is kind of, it's not, I think it's not the typical or stereotypical, oh, I dreamed of chemistry, whatever. I was looking at the summer schools, and none of the dates worked really, or not for medicine and music. And so I was like, well, chemistry, I can do chemistry, and it, it is quite interesting at school, but it wasn't something I'd thought about. And so I applied, managed to get the summer school, and I went, and I thought, actually, this is really good. Like, it's perhaps like you didn't understand much at the time because we had these professors hosting talks on their research at the time, which was really cool. But I thought, I could get used to the sort of structured lectures, and the material was pretty good. I'm enjoying it at school, so why not?
That is so interesting. Like
it's different to the normal, I think.
Yeah, but that's really cool because it shows that there isn't just like one path for people who want to apply for a subject. It's not just like I've loved it since I was born, but like just weird circumstances have led you to find like your passion. It's like that's really crazy and so cool. Yeah, wow. So you talk about UNIQ summer school. So do you want to talk a little bit more about like what that is and how it helped you?
So I think it's at the end of year 12. I think I applied in early January, maybe slightly beforehand. So keep an eye out for it because it comes up quite early. So basically, you go to Oxford, and it's free for about a week or so, and they provide you accommodation, meals, and it's kind of like a mini uni experience. So we had lectures or kind of talks in the morning, and then we had some sort of lab activity. So it wasn't real, but it was good fun because we actually made kind of like sticky glue that we could. I think was it nylon actually. I think it was nylon, and we got to take that and see how far we could stretch that around the labs. So that was really fun, kind of working in teams and just getting to talk to people. And then and then get to just chat with others and see what college life is like, because that's quite different to sort of normal universities as well. And then we did have some sort of tutorial experience, so we got to talk with some of the tutors in sort of, it wasn't like groups of 1 or 2, it was groups of about 10, so you're not taught under any pressure, but it was a good experience, I think. And I think the tutorial experience was actually something I really enjoyed and made me decide that actually Oxford was a good place, because I quite enjoyed being able to talk and discuss things in a small environment. So for me, that was a really good experience. But overall, it was just really fun, to be honest. And some of the people I've still kept in touch with, although they don't go to Oxford. And then some of the people I saw on the course have also got into Oxford as well, both for chemistry and other subjects. So yeah, it's a really good course. I'd definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I did UNIQ too, and I think it's like such a unique experience. But like, yeah, it is like a proper insight into life at Oxford. And like you said, like you make great contacts, you get experience of tutorials, which obviously that's like a big deciding factor in whether you want to come to Oxford or Cambridge, is whether the tutorial style of teaching suits you. So yeah, I definitely agree that it's like a fantastic experience. And yeah, I recommend it for anybody who's at a state school. So yeah, do you reckon that's what made you decide between Oxford and Cambridge, was UNIQ?
I think it did have, yeah, quite a big impact. I think I'd visited Cambridge a couple of times for like various reasons beforehand, just kind of like trips and whatever. For me personally, very kind of subjective, it just felt quite small compared to Oxford. Like I personally prefer sort of not quite London City, very different, but just a bit bigger, more town-like. And I don't know, in Cambridge, I just personally felt more pressure. Like it's just a very weird thing, but it's just how you feel at the end of the day. So I think going to somewhere and being able to experience the environment, and spend like a considerable amount of time there was definitely very useful and did point me towards Oxford. I guess other things that are similar though is like the Sutton Trust. I think they do Cambridge. So I guess if either of them work for you, then it's good good chance to take.
Yeah, I did UNIQ Oxford and I did Sutton Trust at Cambridge, but I did chemistry at Cambridge and biochemistry at Oxford. And so that was so helpful because it helped me to decide between chemistry and biochemistry and also Oxford and Cambridge. So yeah, if you can do as many summer schools and like experiences as you can, that like can really help narrow it down. I mean, obviously there's no point going like too extreme and like doing everything, but I think it is like a good experience to be able to have a chance to see life into both. So yeah, that's great. And obviously summer schools are a great super-curricular and they look really great on your personal statement because it demonstrates like passion, etc. But were there any other super-curriculars that you did?
I feel like I didn't actually do that much. I think there was something at school called the Crest Award, but it was, so you're meant to design your own project in a team, or it doesn't have to be in a team, don't have to. And my team and I, we tried to synthesize our own aspirin using what we could at school. So you had to kind of try and read up what goes into it, the history behind it, and find a good practical procedure. And then go on to do it. And at the end, present your findings. Ours wasn't, well, I think our lab skills probably were lacking because our yield came up above 100%, so it's probably that our product wasn't very dry when we weighed it. But never mind. I don't think it was a big part of my application, to be honest. I think I did mention it, but I didn't put as much work into it as perhaps I could have. So for me, it wasn't a big thing. I guess things like reading science magazines, if you've got them at school, is helpful, but I don't feel like I did anything big in terms of super-curriculars, really.
So what sort of stuff did you put on your personal statement? Because obviously you've got like quite a lot of words. I mean, it doesn't feel like a lot of words, but I suppose like if you haven't got anything to put, it's quite a lot. So like, what did you add on your personal statement?
So I do feel like the UNIQ experience, that was quite a lot. And also that for me stimulated, I went on to talk a bit about the kind of gold nanoparticles. Like obviously at that time I didn't really understand that much, but I think it's being able to show that you found something interesting and then tried to look further into it and understand it more is quite important. And so I spent probably another paragraph or so on that and saying, why I found it interesting. Like gold is such a cool element. And of course, like jewelry is very much used in that. So like a bit of bling, I'm down for that. So and just talking about things that interest you, like in your subject, is I think that took up some part of it. Trying to think, it seems like such a long time ago. What else? Yeah, I'd say, and maybe helping out the school we were paired to a primary school, and so I only went on a couple of sessions to go and help them out, and volunteer and do some pseudoscience practicals. But that's still something you can put down. So anything vaguely related, I think, is good, and it just demonstrating your interest really.
Yeah, I think that's like, you're a really great example of the fact that you don't need to have read hundreds of books and like done this, that, and the other, listened to a million lectures to be able to get into Oxford. It's sort of like, in your personal statement, you more need to show the skills that you've got. So like critical analytical thinking, like you said, you wrote a whole paragraph about talking about the nanoparticles and why it's important in the world, like etc. It's like you're using what you learn rather than just absorbing it like a robot, and I think that's what Oxford want. So yeah, that's really, really good.
Demonstrating that you have interest, because you can say you've read things, but I've heard rumors of some people being like, oh look, here's the book that everyone says they read here, but I didn't have that in my interview. So I felt like I did mention one of the stereotypical chemist books, why chemical reactions happen. So cringy, but like it's not entirely necessary. Maybe put read a couple of articles like what interests you, but for me it wasn't a big part that you have to do.
That's really interesting, and I think that's like really great advice for people who are writing their personal statement, and I think it reduces the stress of like having to do loads and loads and loads, because you actually don't have to have done that much. So yeah, that's really, really useful. And also just a quick going back to why you picked chemistry and Oxford over Cambridge. You said you were considering medicine, so clearly you liked biology as well. So did you ever consider doing natural sciences at Cambridge, because that's, I guess, a broader course, and you could have had a bit of your medicine-y biology stuff as well as chemistry?
So aside from like the location and the actual kind of physicality of it, I personally felt that natural sciences was actually too broad, because I I didn't do physics, and I mean you can probably get into natural sciences without doing physics, and you can choose your options, I believe, once you get into it. But I felt like I'd rather stick to sort of just doing chemistry, as that's what interested me more. So yeah, that was my main decision really.
That's really interesting that you didn't do chemistry, because not chemistry, physics. Imagine not doing chemistry. Because like one of the big modules in chemistry is like physical chemistry, which has a lot of physics in it. So how have you found that?
So admittedly, the first year was quite difficult in some aspects, because I only did maths, biology, chemistry, and I didn't do further maths or physics. And I think there are actually quite a lot of people who were in the same position as me, more than I realised initially. So like, don't worry, you're all in the same boat. But there is quite a lot of, well, for me, there was quite a lot of physics in the first year course, given that I hadn't done any since GCSE. But albeit I don't know how that compares to other university courses. And then there's quite a lot of maths, so that is definitely something. And you have a whole maths paper at the end of the first year when it comes to exams. These don't actually count towards your end grade, so don't worry if it's not entirely your thing, but there is like a compulsory maths part. But I personally quite enjoyed it really, because you sit down, you do the problems, you work through it, and then you get an answer at the end. It can be a bit of a struggle when you don't get what's going on, but it's satisfying when you do. So you just have to kind of get on with it really. So.
Yeah, so like clearly you couldn't have just like suddenly been amazing at physics. So like what sort of resources did you use to, I mean, improve or prove your understanding, I guess?
So the chemistry website itself has it's in like one of the tabs. It has the course but all online and written up, so nothing recorded, but you can go through at your own pace, reading what they've said, and then it has the answers as well to some exercises. So that was definitely really useful, because it's good to have something to check against. There's also a old textbook, I think it's called Gianquali, I don't really know how to pronounce it, but I found that quite useful to go through and just learn the principles, albeit even just going through an A-level physics textbook is probably quite fine, because I think a lot of the basics would be covered in there, and that would give you a much better understanding. Because there are some bits of the course that do go past A-level physics, but I think if you have a strong basis in that, you'll find it a lot easier.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And are your tutors quite receptive? Like if you had any issues, like could you email them and they would give you help? Is that a thing in Merton?
I think so. So physics, those are done, the physics part of the course is done under the department. So you have one of the students at the department and they give your tutorials there. But then, so physical, inorganic, organic, and maths, they're kind of done by your college. So
Okay.
two sort of different tutor systems. And yeah, I found that my tutors at Merton, they've all been really lovely, really understanding. On the whole, I mean, sometimes you feel like they're being a bit unnecessarily strict, but I feel like that's probably a lot of students' perspectives. I mean, I guess I also feel like they want the best for you. And if you are struggling and like they're pushing too much, I would say it's always best to just tell them up front. And so, there's only so much I can do, and these are the areas that I need more work on, or so and so reason for why I'm struggling. So, but in all, I think I found them quite supportive.
That's good to know, because obviously Oxford is a shock, and especially because you didn't do physics and things, so like it's nice to know that they are there to help, and they're not all really, really strict. Because I suppose people think of Oxford and Cambridge professors as like always in their gowns and like, I don't know, really,
a bit aloof maybe.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I similarly have found that that's not really the case. So yeah, that's really, really good to know. And admissions test. Did chemistry have an admissions test for your year? Because I know that they used to do the TSA. So I'm just wondering if you had any experience with that.
We had to do the TSA, but we were told that it wasn't a big part of our application and that we were more guinea pigs. Like they were just using us for our data, see what our results were, and then see if that aligned with whatever admissions process that they used.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know how it works these days, but it wasn't a big part of ours, I don't think.
Yeah, because I know the TSA, I don't think they do it for chemistry anymore. So I suppose they realised that it didn't correlate with like the talent of the students. I suppose it's not like a good indication of whether they'll do well. But other subjects still do the TSA. So if you got any top tips?
Probably practice, because so we only had to do the first part. We didn't have to do the essay question. But I think getting used to reading the questions under timed conditions is very important, because it can be quite a lot to read and to try and figure out what's going on and then pick an answer in the time that you're given.
That sort of leads in very nicely to just talk about the Oxbridge formula again really quickly, because they've got some like great courses on the TSA. So if people are really, really struggling with it, like have a look on the Oxbridge formula and hopefully that'll help. But yeah, that's good to know, because I mean, I suppose admissions tests can be a scary thing, and they're not like normal exams you've taken before. They are very different. So being able, I think practice under time conditions is like super, super important. And then I guess
you know what it looks like as well.
Yeah, exactly. So not like a shock on the day, like, what is this? Obviously, say your personal statement has been great, your grades are like what they're looking for, and your admissions test has gone well. I guess the next stage in the process is interview, which people dread. I mean, I was really nervous for my interview. I guess, any advice for people who are doing chemistry interviews? What was it like for you?
So I'm like, where to start? So in terms of that kind of interview itself, I think have confidence in yourself. Like, if you don't be kind of over the top, but just try and believe in yourself as much as possible. So my interview, I had two. Yeah, I had two, and each was split into two again. So one was maths and physical, and then one was inorganic and organic. So for the maths and physical, I had to do a half an hour-ish test beforehand, which were just like some maths problems. I feel like similar to the things you'd find on, if you've heard of UKMT, that sort of thing. Just, not your typical A-level questions, trying to get you to think around the box a bit more, those sort of things. And then you'd have to take them in to the interview straight afterwards. And then, you sort of chat through kind of your answers, which I guess is similar to a tutorial, and they want to see, you know, how you react in that environment. Because if you don't respond well in those situations, or you feel like it's too pressurizing, then it's going to be difficult in reality. So I guess that's something that they're looking for, or they just want to see really, and how do you feel about it as well. And in my interview, I actually realised that I'd done one of the questions wrong, and I think in that case it was a good thing that I said, oh, I made a mistake, it should be this. And then, because it shows, you know, you're willing to correct things, you're willing to learn. But if you notice there's something wrong, then don't be afraid to say why and kind of go over what you say. Yeah, so both of my interviews were just kind of them asking questions, like subject related questions, and then me trying to answer them essentially. I think only once one of the tutors asked, oh, why do you want to study chemistry? So it's definitely more about the academics of it. And seeing how you respond to questions, I think.
Like, have you got any like examples of questions they asked, or if you don't want to say an exact one, like, and one that's along those lines, just so people have an idea?
Yeah. Okay, so one of my questions was, they gave, like, I think different molecules as just various examples of substances, so like gases, liquids, solids, or whatever. And they're like, oh, what are the properties of it? And then can you compare the properties? Oh, yeah, so it was like, what are the properties of maybe like a solid? And then they try and get us to compare them from different structures or something along those lines. But the maths one I definitely remember, and it was, they have got out a candle and they're like, go do some estimations. And then so you have to go work out things, and you just like, you don't even know what numbers you're picking, but you just try and be somewhat realistic and just go along with it. And so that actually did worry me, because we had to use the power equals energy over time, that formula, and I was just kind of like struggling because I hadn't done it since GCSE, and I was like, but I managed to kind of whip it out from the back of my memory because I remembered like PET. And there's one of the interviewers, she actually like nodded at me encouragingly, and I was like, oh, yeah, we have a beacon of hope. And then the organic was just like, I think it started off with your A-level mechanisms, and then just gradually kind of pushing it a bit further to see what, if you could figure things out. And it doesn't mean you have to be right, you don't have to get the right answer at all, just as long as if you've got, you know, a good sound logic behind what you're saying, then it doesn't really matter the end result, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because a lot of my questions were like testing how I think rather than my knowledge, and I think it's important to know that you don't have to know everything before going into an interview, but it is more about how you think. So like speaking through your thought process out loud, and if you get something wrong, it's almost good, because you can then demonstrate the fact that you can like go back a few steps, and like if you can identify what's wrong, that's really impressive, and then go down a different path or try a different theory or whatever. And then it's also good to ask the tutors for help as well. Like if you don't understand something, ask, because
I think just treating it as if you were at, say, a tutor session, try not to overhype it in your head, I'd say, might be quite helpful. Because I think in the end it's just a simulation of what a tutorial would be like. So I mean, it is important, but at the end of the day, I think that's what it boils down to. Oh yeah, like if you don't know it, don't clam up and say I don't know, or like you can start off with that because that's your initial response. But don't be afraid to take a few moments to kind of not say anything, give your time to actually think about it, and then come up with something to say, I think. So yeah, don't be afraid of getting things wrong, just go for it and give it a shot, really.
Yeah, and I suppose if you don't know it, just be like, I don't know, but I'm willing to have a go. And like, even if you try, even if you get it wrong, it gives them an idea of how you think, and also that you're willing to try to think about something that you've never thought about. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the interview is basically, like you said, like a tutorial, and they just want to see the way you think, to see if you fit the tutorial way of teaching. Because some people applying to Oxford and Cambridge are geniuses, like they've got top grades, but if they don't suit the tutorial way of teaching, then there's just no point Oxford and Cambridge taking them on, because that is their main method of teaching. So yeah, I think that's definitely true. Yeah, so with chemistry, I suppose it's a really, really broad subject. So what are your future plans?
At the minute, they're very non-existent. um, so, I mean, I personally don't think I'll be doing further academia, or not imminently afterwards, because the chemistry degree at Oxford is a 4-year course. So I think you come out with an integrated master's, where you do your 3 years study, and then your 4th year you join a research group and take part, which is really cool. But I, at the moment, don't see myself kind of going down the PhD route. So I think maybe I prefer something a bit more applied, where I'm using what I've learned, and either improving things, perhaps in pharmaceuticals, if I find something that suits on. Because ideally I want to be able to use it to benefit people. That's what I would like to do eventually. So really anything that falls under that, I'm quite open to. Albeit I think I'll probably stick more to either kind of venturing more to biochem, pharmaceuticals, or maybe kind of applied things. Like Unilever sort of research development, that sort of applied kind of day-to-day objects that I can see having an impact, is something that I personally prefer. And then if that leads me into research further down the line, like I find something interesting and think, oh, actually, that's somewhere to go, then perhaps I'll follow down that route later. But that's my rough idea, I think.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think it's great that you're someone who hasn't got it all figured out, because I feel like some people at Oxford have everything figured out from day dot, and they're very career focused and like, oh, I'm going to be an like investment banker and things, and like it can be quite high pressured and not like a nice environment to be in when people are that focused on careers. So like you said, it's nice to just take a seat back and just see what you enjoy. So I guess now you know that straight after your degree you don't want to do a PhD, but I mean the option is open for later in your life. So I think that's a really nice way of looking at it. And also it's good to know that you like further research isn't the only career path after you've done a chemistry degree at Oxford.
Yeah.
So yeah,
you don't
really
have
nice.
to become all the way academic and all the way down. I mean, there are definitely people who are, and if that's your thing, then go for it. Like definitely. But there's there's a lot of people here who also aren't. So they feel like you have to fit any typical stereotypes or conform.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so you talked a little bit about going into labs in 4th year, but obviously you do a lot of labs earlier on in your degree too. So do you want to give us a little insight into chemistry labs? Because I know they're quite different from biochemistry labs, and I think slightly more intense than ours. So yeah, give me an insight.
So you'll be given 2 days of labs a week. So my days were Thursday, Friday. Like there's general structure. So you have 9 to 11, you have 2 lectures Monday to Friday as part of the degree. I mean, optional if you want to go or not, but at the moment, or at least for the past couple of years and forever, they haven't been recorded, but maybe going forward, they're probably going to be online now. So that might not be an issue anymore, which is good. And then, so you go straight from lectures to labs, and they're from 11 till 5, so 6 hours. On both Thursday and Friday, and then you can go for lunch, probably for about half an hour, depending on what your lab's going, sometime between whenever it fits your lab. So that's something to get used to, because initially I was like, what? There's no kind of structure, you just go whenever, and it's like, yeah, and which makes sense, because your lab not everyone is going at the same time, because you take different amounts of time to weigh things out, get it going, or your reaction might just be slower than someone else's. Like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. So then before before the lab begins, you have to have done a safety form, so you know what you're dealing with, because if you're dealing with dangerous things, you don't want to be just like walking around the lab with it. Nope, not good for other people and yourself, more importantly. So that you have to do at least the night before, as well as a pre-lab. So normally a multiple choice quiz, just to make sure you've somewhat read the practical and have a rough idea of what's going on. So they want you to understand the concepts behind what you're doing, as opposed to just following a recipe book, which I think is quite useful, albeit it feels like hassle when it's kind of late the night before. You're like, oh, why haven't I done it yet? So you have that to do, and then you turn up for the lab, quick introduction, get on with it. We've been allowed to have speakers in the lab, so we'll often play some music. And first year you get to go with a lab partner, which is really cool. So you're both sort of trying to figure out what's going on, and helping each other out and working on the same experiment. But going on to second year, it hasn't. I thought, oh, I don't have a lab partner, that's going to be really difficult, but it was fine in the end. You can, because you're still talking to each other and help each other out when you need to. And then so you finish. Sometimes you finish earlier than 5, but they're meant to take about 6 hours, because you need to get that certain amount of lab hours over the course of your degree in order for them to allow it, or for you to graduate. So I think that's fair enough. And then after your labs, you've got a post lab. Well, I'm not sure. I think they might have changed it actually, so that you do it during the lab, but you just have to, write up your results and explain what's going on and why your results are the way they are. So, I mean, I feel like I made it sound really long, but sometimes what you're doing is actually really interesting. Well, I find it really interesting. So we got caffeine from like tea bags. We once found out that the molecules that we were actually making were drugs, essentially. Obviously they didn't say that, but so you were doing like 2 different isomers of the same compound, and one was like an actual drug, and then the other one was just the isomer. So that was pretty cool. You do all sorts across the whole, like inorganic, organic, physical. So sometimes it's not as good, but sometimes it is. So it balances out in the end.
That's really cool. That's so interesting, because in biochem we don't really have much pre-work before labs, but we obviously do have the write-up after, and like we're still in lab partners for second and third year. Honestly, I'd be useless if I was by myself. Oh my gosh. But yeah, and it's so cool that you get your speakers in the lab. I suppose that creates like more of a chilled out atmosphere, so it's not like high pressured, like gotta pipette this and do this and do this. Like it's more of like a nice chilled.
There's a lot of jokes, and if anything, I feel like some of my most memorable experiences are from in labs, whether it be when things go wrong or you're just kind of joking as well, because the colleges get mixed up slightly as well. So your college, I think, tends to get split in half, and then kind of all these different colleges will form groups. So it's nice that you get to mix with other colleges and talk to other chemists, because often, in lectures you might not get the chance to do so as much. So in that way you get to meet a lot of different people, and also you have the junior demonstrators there as well, so kind of often PhD students, and they're really lovely generally and kind of want you to be able to do it and are always willing to help. So yeah, I found labs are cool.
Yeah, I agree, because labs are like a great way to meet other people in your subject, because other subjects only have lectures, so they don't meet people from other colleges doing their subjects. So labs are like so great for social life. But also chemistry sounds intense, like more intense than biochem, I think, like from my point of view. I mean, obviously don't know in reality, but like how do you balance all that work with social life, or do you?
I think it's definitely doable. I guess it's a balance between how much do you want to put into your work? Are you looking for a specific grade? Like, is that what is important to you? It's just your priorities, and then balancing that with other things you want to do. So for my first year, I tried out some ballroom dancing. I did that was really fun.
That's really cool.
I did string ensemble, and then I went on to join an orchestra as well.
Wow, so you did a lot. Yeah.
I guess so, yeah. And then, kind of trying to go out on nights out, the occasional post for like the Oxford Girl, whatever, related things. So I think it's definitely doable. It just depends on what you want to do. So in terms of structuring or trying to organise my time, I do my lectures, and then often the hour, because I went to college lunch, so for me that's at 12 till about 1. So the hour, I would try and do something in it, but most of the time I just sort of sit there like, well. I'm just like relaxing after lectures, because they can be quite intense. After lunch, I would go and do some work in the library, because I quite like using the library, but do wherever works for you, to be honest. And I think that lunchtime or post lunchtime period was quite important for me. That's kind of one of my kind of go-to work times. And then often you spend quite a few hours in the kitchen when you make dinner, kind of lots of different people come in, you just sit there and chat, you're like, oh, how are you doing, how's your day, whatever. So you just leave a few hours for that maybe. I would find that I would do some more work in the evening around events. So if I had something from like 7 to 9, I would come back and work after 9 to catch up on those few hours. So I guess there is that classic work, sleep, study triangle, and you can only pick 2.
Literally.
I think we do sort of sacrifice on some things, but then hopefully you might get some time over the vacation periods to catch up on perhaps the study side if you didn't do as much of that, or I probably did more socializing and catch up with study in the vacation. I personally would say that's, if you want to have a good balance, is the way to do it. But it is doable, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And organizing your time is so important, but not to put too much pressure on yourself. If you want to do other things, do them, because you're only at Oxford once. And if you sit in your room the whole time, which if you want to, that's so fine. But if you don't, and you want to experience life at Oxford, then you'll regret it if you don't. So you just might as well have fun while you're there.
Definitely make the most of it. Yeah,
exactly.
And I guess one thing that is true is a lot of the time, first year, the grades don't actually count.
True.
So it is important that you get your foundation and also just keep up with things, because you don't want to fall too far behind. But don't beat yourself up too much over things either.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And there's also so many cool societies to be a part of at Oxford, and so many different aspects of life. I can't even put it into words how crazy life is at Oxford. It's so much fun and so broad and varied. And to miss out on that, I feel it'd be a shame. Yeah. But so yeah, I think definitely if there's any work that you need to catch up with over the vacation, that's so fine.
Yeah, I think most people do.
Yeah. What's been your favourite thing about chemistry?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. There's quite a lot, really. I think learning a lot and understanding a lot more is definitely one of the big things that I've enjoyed. Both in terms of actually understanding more about why things happen. So, for example, it doesn't seem obvious when you're learning it at the time, because we had this course on liquids and solutions, but then in doing so it explains why bubbles form, and it's just simple things like that, satisfying. I find it amusing. I guess, but I think chemistry specifically, I think my personal progression is definitely something that I'm quite proud of and is important to me. When you, from the start of the year, struggling so much on certain problems, and then by the end of the year, suddenly you're like, oh, wait, I actually do understand it, and I do get what's going on, and I can do the problem. That sense of achievement it's definitely very rewarding for me, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree, because there were some topics in biochem in first year that I was organic chem actually was one I really struggled with, and so at the start of the year I was I just can't do it, it's so hard. But I suppose the way Oxford is, you have to understand it, it's done in a way that you will understand it at the end too, and the satisfaction you get, like you said, when you do that makes up for the sweat and tears beforehand. So yeah, I definitely agree. And then one last question: if you could go back to your year 12 self and give yourself any advice, what would it be?
Hey, trust yourself, have confidence, and in that case, try not to, don't knock yourself down. Yeah, just be bold and give things a go. Don't be afraid, really. Hard work, stay committed, and be true to yourself, I guess.
Yeah, that's so nice. That's such a nice way to end it. Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. It's been so nice to talk to you. And as a biochemist, it's been so interesting to see what's similar and what's different between the two subjects. So yeah, that's been really, really interesting. And I really, really appreciate you talking to me today. Yeah, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time at Oxford. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you around again.
Yeah, bump into you sometime soon.
Thank you.
Bye. No worries. Bye.